Okay, I'm going to take a little break from our restoration by showing you what I do with yellowed plastic parts. You can see how yellow this has gotten. So what we're going to do, hopefully the camera can pick up that color change. What we're going to do is we're going to do a little experimenting here. I use a process called Retrobrighting on the Commodore 64 computer cases that I restore to take the yellow out of the keys in the case. So I'm going to show you how that works, and we're going to take two of these and do a retrobrighting process, and we're going to take two of these and put them and cover them with Easy Off oven cleaner and see if that has an impact on the yellow. The Easy Off cleans and takes away the paint and cleans some of the nylon parts really well, but I don't recall how well it does in taking the yellow out. So let's see how this goes. So for retrobrighting, I use this hair care product. It's a 40 volume cream, and basically what it is it's developer. You want to be careful with it. Don't get it on your hands. It stings a bit. Oops. So you just want to be careful with it. In our case, what we're going to do is, so we take some saran wrap, these two little things in saran wrap, and we're going to just brush on some of this peroxide onto these parts here. Primarily, especially covering the yellow, but I'm just going to be real generous with it. And then once we get done and covering these is this peroxide. The reason for the saran wrap is the peroxide will evaporate, so you want the saran wrap around it to keep all the juices in, so to speak. Okay, should be good enough for now. So what we do next, we're going to flip this over at some point in time, but what we're doing next here is we're going to put this out underneath the very bright sunlight. And the sunlight is going to produce UV rays that react with the peroxide and kind of bring the yellowness back out of it. So it has to be strong sunlight because you want as much UV light as possible. I have tried this under an actual UV light, putting this in aluminum foil and all this other stuff, but I just have found that the sunlight just gives it just a heck of a lot more powerful UVs than the UV lights do. So that's why we're going to put this out in the sun. So I'm going to put that out in the sun, and we're going to take these other two here, and I'm going to take some Easy Off oven cleaner, and be careful, have an open window. This stuff is, and don't get it on yourself. This stuff is produces fumes. Can't tell you if they're toxic or not, but they're just not fun to breathe in. So open the window here. I'm putting this closer to the window, so I'll put this out in the sunlight, and we'll report back and see what happens in a few hours. Okay, I think you saw earlier that we had taken a couple of pieces and put them in the easy off oven cleaner, and a couple of pieces we put it in a hydrogen peroxide hair care product and left it out in the sun. So I have some developments for you here. So this is from the oven cleaner, and you can see they're still yellowing. It cleaned them up, that's for sure, but it left the yellow. So what about the hydrogen peroxide, the hair care product? Well, here's what happened. So I live in Grants Pass, Oregon, and it's wintertime and it's rainy season, so there wasn't that much sunlight. So let me show you what I did instead. We needed the sunlight for the ultraviolet rays. I took the saran wrap. You didn't really need the saran wrap, quite honestly. You know, I took some plastic and I put the peroxide in the little plastic Ziploc bag and put the components in, you know, the two little plastic pieces in there. Before I show them to you, I want to just show you what I've done. So I needed UV. So I use this UV light here to cure my 3D printed. When I 3D print in resin, I use the ultraviolet light to cure the printouts. So what I did is I made this little box and put aluminum foil in it so it reflects. I took the little plastic Ziploc bag with the parts and hydrogen peroxide and put it in the box, and then I put the light over it just like so, and I left it run almost overnight, about 6 or 7 hours. So it got the UV light treatment that it needed, so the hydrogen peroxide can do its thing. And let's compare now. This is a process called retrobrighting. Okay, like I said, I use it on computer cases that have yellowed over time. I brush on that hydrogen peroxide on the cases, wrap them in saran wrap to keep the moisture in, and lay them out in the sun for a few hours. So this is the result of the retrobrighting. You can see that these things came out white. Let's compare that to how they were. And hopefully there's not too much light where it'll drown it out, but this still has yellowing. This is almost pure white. Now, a word of caution. I've never retrobrighted this kind of plastic, so I didn't know how much time to leave it under the UV. I feel I left it under the UV too long because, first of all, I didn't really want it this white. So I wanted it to be just a little light beige. The yellowing gone, but you know, the actual parts aren't bright white. So this ended up being in there way too long, and it turned out to be a bright white. The other is that there is some kind of little reaction because I left it in there so long, where there is a little bit of scaling on these parts. So, you know, don't really like that. Not that it matters on these parts, and that's why we chose these parts, but the word of caution here is if you're going to do the retrobrighting, when I do this on the computer cases, I do it for a few hours at a time, and then I go take a look and see if I need to leave them out a little bit longer, or if they're done to where I want them to. Like I said, I left these overnight. I went to sleep, you know, so way too long, but I think you can see the power of retrobrighting. If done in moderation, it can bring some of these yellowed parts back to life, and then give you a real stellar look, making everything look like new again. The retrobrighting takes care of the yellow, but note that unless you coat it with some UV protection, the yellowing will come back over time, just like normal, because fluorescent lighting and all that stuff does still impact the color. So it will yellow again over time, over a long time, you know, but, you know, if you spray some UV protection or there's some polishing compounds that are UV protectants over your product, it should keep them the color that you're satisfied with for a very long time. So hope you learned something from this and it helps you in any of your future projects. Retrobrighting. Easy peasy. By the way, that hydrogen peroxide bottle was like $4 or $5. It was nothing. So it's not even a cost investment really in terms of the product. So keep that in mind and have fun restoring everything. Enjoy life. Thanks.